if you follow the money, he takes it, puts it in one of his 20 shell corporations. He, in fact, pays James Biden, the president's brother.
Thank you so much for your time. I do just want to note that, again, the documents reviewed by NBC News, they show that the president made a $200,000 loan to his brother in 2018. Payments were to Hunter Biden were for a 2018 Ford Raptor truck. I don't know. I haven't heard a high crime or misdemeanor yet. I completely understand.
Are you going to let me answer the question, ma'am? I know you're a Democrat operative. You work for a Democrat consulting firm.
All right, Congressman, let's do it then since we're here. We're out of time, but we're going to do it.
In other words, as we say in Scotland, stop telling porkies. Porky pies. Lies.
What is the evidence that the committee has that Joe Biden, while he was president, committed a high crime, misdemeanor, or treason? Because that is the bar for an impeachment inquiry.
Okay, first things first, cracking jumper there, Representative Burchett, real festive. Now, you may have seen this clip over the weekend, and it is worth revisiting. MSNBC's Simone Sanders opted to invite Tennessee Representative Tim Burchett on her show to discuss last week's impeachment circus, which, in case you missed it, by the way, not to worry, here are the spark notes.
This has been, I think, the most transparent political...
That all I can say is there's some indication of maybe some compromise with China particularly, but I have no evidence of it.
The influence
okay, Gary, given that answer, just a yes or no here. Can Republicans prove all that?
So after said train wreck of a week, Burchett was asked to present any credible evidence that Joe Biden committed treason, a high crime, or any misdemeanor against the government, to which, of course, he couldn't answer and resorted to hyperbole and personal attacks, which is, as we know, par for the course when it comes to Republican debate strategy.
So, House Republicans, you all are saying that you're going to follow the facts in the inquiry, but there has been no evidence that has been produced that the president committed a high crime or misdemeanor while he was president. And so if you don't find any evidence, at what point will the inquiry be considered concluded?
When we get to the conclusion of that would be when we go through all the evidence. As I was stating earlier, there's a $5 million investment with Hunter and a Chinese communist member. And then Hunter, if you follow the money, he takes it, puts it in one of his 20 shell corporations. He, in fact, pays James Biden, the president's brother. And then at the end of it, you see a $40,000 go out of this account, which was only created apparently for this influx of millions of dollars. And the bank in itself, in its email records, has stated that there is, we see no business interest here. We need to be
Congressman
wary of
Burchett,
this.
thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I do just want to note that, again, the documents reviewed by NBC News, they show that the president made a $200,000 loan to his brother in 2018. The $40K you talk about, bank records that the Oversight Committee themselves saw show that the president made a wire transfer when he was not the president to James Biden of $40K. Payments were to Hunter Biden were for a 2018 Ford Raptor truck that Joe Biden purchased that Hunter Biden was using. I don't know. I haven't heard a high crime or misdemeanor yet. I completely understand.
Are you going to let me answer the question, ma'am? I know you're a Democrat operative. You work for a Democrat consulting firm.
All right, Congressman, let's do it then since we're here. We're out of time, but we're going to do it. I did used to advise a number of individuals. I've also advised some corporations and companies, but here I'm just here to be an advocate for the viewer. And I will ask you one last time, what is the evidence that the committee has that Joe Biden, while he was president, committed a high crime, misdemeanor, or treason? Because that is the bar for an impeachment inquiry.
But as he geared up to go on yet another incoherent, substanceless rant, Sanders did this.
Well, you have to ask yourself, ma'am, why does a vice president or a president get $40,000 through a Chinese communist corporation that has been...
All right. Well, with that, thank you all very much, Congressman. It's always a pleasure, but you just can't come on here and lie.
And this is how liars should always be treated. As I've said many a times, I'm all for inviting them on. I've never been one to think that starving the GOP of oxygen is the recipe for combating their lies. I believe that is more dangerous than anything. But when you have them on air, you have to be prepared to push back on said lies and disinformation. Another great example of this was last week where Caitlin Collins sparred with Republican Ron Johnson, putting the onus on him to provide receipts that he so confidently cited on air.
Sells out of a nuisance lawsuit. They agreed to settle a nuisance lawsuit that never should have been brought.
So you think it's fine that someone...
Lawsuit. It's a travesty of justice.
You think it's fine that someone who tried to overturn a legitimate election is still on a board
Democrat
that
electors have done that
certifies.
Repeatedly. Democrats have done the same thing. Republicans have never tried to criminalize it.
Fake slates of electors?
No, it's happened in different states. I didn't come
sir?
prepared to give you the exact states, but it's happened repeatedly. It has happened repeatedly. Just go check the books.
Which books?
I mean, there have been alternate slates of electors by Democrat electors in our history. Again, this wasn't what this interview was going to be about. I'll come and I'll provide you the information, but I'm absolutely certain about that.
I look forward to your office sending that information. We'll publish it if it's accurate.
And then when he did, he made an even grander fool of himself, furthermore proving why you cannot take a Republican's comments at face value.
Johnson may not have read the books that he told us to check very closely. So he followed up on Twitter, listed the 4 examples that you see here, none of which proved his point. Democrats have not repeatedly used alternate slates of electors. None even come close to what Republicans did in 2020. Really, just one of the examples he cites even is relevant to this. There's some big differences, so I'll tell you what they are. The senator is pointing to the 1960 election, something that we have seen Republicans bring up repeatedly since Trump lost in 2020. That year, Democrats in Hawaii sent an alternative slate of electors to Congress. Vice President Richard Nixon at the time and John F. Kennedy, they were nearly tied in the state. But here, the facts about what happened next are critical. At the time, a recount was still underway, one that ultimately flipped the results from Nixon to Kennedy. A judge would rule that the Kennedy electors were legitimate. And I should note that when Kennedy was ultimately the winner in the final count in Hawaii, it was Nixon himself, as vice president, who presided over the session approving that slate of electors instead of his own on January 6, 1961. In 2020, meanwhile, the recount in Wisconsin was over. It showed that Biden did indeed win Senator Ron Johnson's home state. Wisconsin's alternate GOP electors met more than 2 weeks after that recount and still signed a false certificate of electors. Trump and his supporters, of course, would go on to lose 7 more lawsuits in Wisconsin related to the electors. The other examples on Senator Johnson's list are instances where Democrats voiced objection to the election results. Not exactly instances of plots to overturn an election that was affirmed by recounts and by the courts. But even if you disagree with what those Democrats did, most importantly here, those instances went nowhere because the candidates who lost those elections conceded them. Of course, Senator Ron Johnson's role in this has also come under scrutiny, given the text messages showing that his chief of staff was trying to deliver a, quote, alternate slates of electors for Michigan and Wisconsin directly to Vice President Pence on January 6th, something that will surely be included in the history books.
They're so used to going on Fox News and being free to offload mouth diarrhea without an ounce of hesitation. But then just look what happens when an actual journalist does their job and pushes back.
Thanks so much for watching. We're only a few subscribers short of 2 million subs. Please subscribe right now to the MeidasTouch YouTube channel for free and help us grow this unapologetically pro-democracy network.